The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Okay, Carson Soucy, you got to give up your number 7 to Elias Lindholm because it seems like the Canucks want to give Lindholm the 7 bag, baby. Let's go. You're listening to Locked On Canucks.
The 7 bag. Let's go.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, also a Canucks writer since 2013, currently with Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into this Quick Styles update episode of Locked On Canucks, we got to thank you for tuning in because guess what? It is your Canucks every damn day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you go like or subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. I dropped an episode yesterday morning talking about, can the Canucks keep all three of their free agents? Will they lose all three of them just like in 2020? And, even over the last 24 hours, there have been some fairly big updates on the situation, namely with Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. So we're going to touch the Elliot Friedman updates for both of those players. Again, to what's happened with Zadorov and that sag over the past 24 hours, because that's been kind of crazy as well. But let me introduce my co-host first and foremost to, man, it looks like he has my Wi-Fi. Cal Bowden, what's going on, buddy?
It's that Calgary Wi-Fi, but man, oh man, I'm doing it, man. I'm being a Canucks fan wherever I got to be a Canucks fan. Case in point, I'm out for chicken wings with the boys, with the family members, with the cousins a couple days ago, right? And I pick up the bill for a couple of my cousins, right? But do I pick up the bill for the Edmonton Oilers fan who I happen to be staying with, who happened to lend me his car for day after day after day after day, a place to stay for day after day, feeding me? Did I pick up that guy's bill? No, I didn't. So am I the most loyal Canucks fan ever? Because I'm willing to risk my family for the team and my relations with some of my cousins for the team? Of course, because it's go Canucks go, and I'm never paying for a bill of an Oilers fan a couple weeks after they eliminated us, okay? Can I get a round of applause, Begsy? Can you press the round of applause button? I'm too laggy on my side, okay? Because if I press it, it's going to take 5 seconds.
I sure can, man. I sure can.
Everyone hit the like button for, my performance, okay?
I'm proud of you, buddy. And I really hope that Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov have that same kind of loyalty to the blue and green that you do. And, I look at these two players who have been beaten in the playoffs by Edmonton when they were in Calgary. They've been beaten in the playoffs by Edmonton when they've been with the Vancouver Canucks. I do hope there's, a small part of those players that, really wants to stick around with this organization and be a part of the Canucks team that's going to bring the city their first ever Stanley Cup. Now, I feel like, and again, we talked about this week, I said 25% chance Joshua stays. It really seemed like over the past 24 hours, Zadorov was going to walk, and it seemed like Lindholm's going to be too expensive to keep. So, we'll touch on maybe thoughts about how this compares to 2020, but let's get into the updates first and foremost. And the first update from Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast with that the Canucks are willing to go 7 years, $7 million per season with Elias Lindholm, which to me really caught my attention because, again, this guy is probably the third line center on your team. Sure, he can play up the lineup. He's not going to be your typical 12 line center or third line center playing 12, 13 minutes a night. He's going to have a big role in this team.
Yeah.
But still, when you're paying Pettersson 11.6, when you're paying Miller $8 million, can the Canucks really afford to pay Lindholm $7 million? And if they're willing to go 7 and you're Elias Lindholm, how do you not stay? I know this guy could probably go and get 8 in the open market. It's a really weak UFA market in terms of centers. But man, oh man, when I saw that, it's like the Canucks are not just dicking around with Elias Lindholm. They're really trying to make a push to sign this guy long term.
Oh, yeah. And, man, it kind of makes sense because, again, man, the Canucks do not want to take a step backwards. It's the truth. And right now, they're solely negotiating with this guy, right? He's still, quote unquote, Canucks property till July 1st, maybe trying to get ahead of it, trying to get a feel of things before he hits the open market. And again, jeopardizes his place with the Canucks. We talked about this all week, right? Whether it be Joshua, Zadorov, or Lindholm, if they lose any of these guys, the Canucks have to replace those players with similar, again, not skill set, but we'll use NHL overall terms again, a similar overall, if not better. So again, I see the importance of at least negotiating with Lindholm because this team made the second round of the playoffs. They went to Game 7 against the Western Conference champions. There's some pieces there. There's some things there. And I know he's not a winger. I know it didn't work with him and Pettersson. And that was kind of the aura around this transaction back in January. But the fact that the Canucks could go into next season with Pettersson, Miller, and Lindholm as a center force that can't compare to any other team in the league, because who can? That's pretty lethal, if you ask me, is an advantage. And I know everyone's going to be crying about the winger and the top 6 winger. Heck, maybe the Canucks do still find him in the offseason, or again, they do it via trade next season. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's a big possibility. And again, you want to talk about a big possibility. If you're that deep down the middle, again, look how close the Canucks were this season in getting to the Final Four. It's a really, really good thing. A really, really powerful thing. You're deep down the middle like that. You got Quinn Hughes also playing defense for you. You got Thatcher Demko and Archer Shilovs. There's a recipe for success. Now, if you lose Lindholm and don't get a player like that in return, whether it be a center or not, it's a definite step backwards. Now, the whole money thing, the $7 million, the 7 years, it sounds like a lot. It is a lot. But I kind of mentioned this with my cousin who I'm staying with, right? With him being an Oilers fan. If the Oilers can win a cup with Darnell Nurse and he scores like 1 goal in this series, or he has one big block and all this stuff and he's making $9 million, it's worth it. It's worth it. If the Canucks win 1 Stanley Cup with Lindholm, Pettersson, and Miller, it's worth it. Who cares if he sucks in year 4, year 5 of that deal? It's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. The Canucks have a window right now of about 3 years. And every day, I've said that time and time again now. Let's look at the ramifications if you re-sign Elias Lindholm. So I'm just doing some rough projections here on Cap Friendly, nerding out on a Friday morning. And let's say the Canucks do give Lindholm $7 million per season, okay? After that, let's say they grind down Hronek and he takes a deal paying him 6.5 per season. And, whether it's Tyler Myers or another kind of low-end top 4 guy, you pay him 2.75. With that all being said, the Canucks have $9.2 million in cap space without upgrading their top 6 and without re-signing Nikita Zadorov. So for me, if the Canucks truly want to give Lindholm that money and they do want to take a solid crack at signing Zadorov, and again, I haven't even mentioned Joshua either.
Yeah.
Again, something's got to give here, right? And for me, and I know we'll talk about in another episode, it's Ilya Mikheyev, okay? You got this. It's the most inefficient contract in the Canucks books right now. If this guy can't be a top 6 winger, I think you got to move on. And I think we know pretty clearly, I expect him to be a top 6 winger is a big stretch.
Don't move on, bro. Like, again, can they go to Alvin and be like, yo, buy this guy out? Or can they go to another team? Or just, again, can that management group be like, all right, let's give up another draft pick so a team can absorb this contract? Like, is there another way around this? There is. Rutherford, Alvin, Aquilini and company. LTIR, this guy. Somehow find a way. No, seriously, I know it sounds so scummy, but other teams have done it. And it's time to play that card. It's time to convince Mikheyev to, take a full year off instead of, pushing the issue like he has for so long with dealing with these injuries and surgeries and whatnot. Just like, take a full year off and maybe this guy can accelerate to another level after like 8 months of just training and getting into the playoffs. Because again, I just don't feel like after the OEL thing, the Canucks are in a position to buy this guy out. Or again, just give up like a 2nd or a 1st round pick to get rid of this guy's contract. Like, is there a world where you can trade a pretty bad contract that is owned by a player that also had 1 goal in his last 746 games? Can you trade that contract away without giving up any draft capital? No way. It's actually the truth. There's no chance. But you're 100% right? If the Canucks spend a lot of money on Lindholm, and even if they save a little bit of money on Zadorov, whatever that means, because again, apparently that number is a little bit lower than we think. The fact that we'll be losing Dakota Joshua because we got Ilya Mikheyev on this team is horrible news for that bottom 6, right? And the more and more you talk about the bottom 6, the more and more you talk about Lindholm signing with the Canucks. I know it sounds so extreme, but then Lindholm becomes your 3rd line center, and you kind of want to see what he can do in a full season with Joshua and Garland, because that could be, again, a lethal combination for this team.
Yeah, it 100% could be. And again, when it comes to Ilya Mikheyev and the LTIR, you bring up an interesting point, but I do think that there are teams around the league who have some value in Mikheyev and think he can bounce back, right? I mean, this guy, again, he was on pace for like 40, 50 points early in the season before he fell off a cliff, right? But he's got speed. I think he's got, a good baseline and a good work ethic. I do think there are teams out there that
does he have speed, bro? Come on.
He does have speed. I think he still has speed. Not like what he was before, but I know some moments in the playoffs where he was, pretty tenacious and pretty speedy on the forecheck for sure. He's definitely on the upper echelon in terms of quick players.
He has like one speed burst every effing 2 games, man. Because again, I think he's pushing the issue. I think he's injured still, man. I think he's not fully recovered, and the Canucks need to hire their doctor, pay their doctor under the table to make up some sort of fake diagnosis on this guy's knee and convince him that, yo, bro, if you take 8 months off or 9 months off, you will be back to normal. You'll be back to normal. Anyways, man, this whole Lindholm thing it's crazy, and it might be scaring Canucks fans because of the money and whatnot, but you look at what he did in the playoffs and how he was ramping up, right? He became a way different player than what we got post-January is telling me that, again, this is not that surprising that Alvin and Rutherford would want to do everything to acquire this guy. Now, Trevor, I got to bring it up again. I know we got to get to break because we got to get out of here pretty quick. But again, the Canucks gave up a ton for this guy. They did. It's just the truth. Keeping him after giving up that much for him makes this trade that we did with Calgary a lot easier to stomach. Because again, the Canucks gave up quite a bit for this guy. Like, look at how many times we're drafting this year. We got to keep Lindholm. We got to keep Lindholm. I know you don't like to compare the two, but based on what I saw in the playoffs and how important he was and how we got out of Nashville because of his performance, how we got the Game 7 of round 2 with him stepping up with Pettersson being absolutely invisible, I trust this guy. And I want to keep him.
Yeah, this is a topic for another day, but to me, I look at if you do want to, re-sign Lindholm and maintain either a Zadorov or a Joshua, you're not going to be able to get a guy like Gensel. And prefer me personally, and let us know in the comments what you think. I'd probably prefer a guy like Gensel over a guy like Lindholm and find a better cost-friendly option for your third-line center. But again, I think that's a debate for another day. Let's cut to the other side and talk a bit about Nikita Zadorov and his contract situation. Just one ad break here, but I got to shout out our friends over at Gametime and Policygenius. All right, I'm starting with Policygenius. And, I survived my ordeal in Alberta, wearing my Canucks jersey wherever I went. But, I had to be prepared, okay? And that's why I made sure to get my life insurance policy through Policygenius. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams, okay? Policygenius, they help you easily compare options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks, all right? You can do it while scratching your sack at home alone in your basement, okay? Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. And, Policygenius, they have no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other. They just know they just got your back, okay? That's all you can so you can trust their guidance. And they have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance policy with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quote and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com.
Bada bing, bada boom.
All right. It's NBA Finals time, okay? Game 1 was last night. And you know what? If you're looking for tickets to Game 2 in Dallas or Boston, make sure you go use Gametime. Gametime makes getting to the NBA Finals, getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. And prices on the Gametime app, guess what? They actually go down. Woo! The closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. That's my favorite part about Gametime, baby. Gametime, they take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. And you know what? If you're not into the NBA, if you want to stay local, you can go find tickets for BC Lions, Vancouver Whitecaps, concerts, comedy, events, theater, and more. Find it all on Gametime, okay? So make sure when when you're on the Gametime app, take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Close break.
One love to Gametime. Sorry for cutting you off midway through your ad read. That's what happens with Calgary Wi-Fi, okay? It is what it is. Hey, speaking of Calgary, I can't believe we're here in the middle of June, I guess, raving about ex-Calgary Flames players, right? Like, this is a need. This is a must. I also got to add this to the table, too, if I'm bringing up Calgary. I've spent more time in Calgary than I have in a very long time over the last couple of days, and I got to say, low-key, Calgary's pretty beautiful, man. Like, I wouldn't move here, but Calgary, it's got some sauce. It really does. Now, can I say one more thing about Lindholm before we talk about Zadorov? Just let me add this to the table. If the Canucks keep Lindholm and he has gas left in the tank, like a lot of gas, and he wants to rekindle his relationship with NHL fans and remind the fans that, yo, he's a really good player, and he executes, I wonder how that bodes for our power play. And I know he's a big reason why the power play struggled, but I wonder if, again, him, Miller, Besser, Hughes, Pettersson can get it together to become one of the best power play units in the league. And again, keeping this guy, if we're going to keep it on the special teams, man, oh man, he's a really good penalty killer. He really is. This guy's important, man. And if they win a Stanley Cup with paying him a lot of money, it's worth it. I know that's the obvious thing, but I brought up the whole Darnell Nurse thing again. I know it's effed up because Nurse really sucks. I don't think Lindholm really sucks, but Darnell Nurse really sucks. But there he is, blocking shots late in game 6 against Dallas. I believe he had the last shift of the game in a must-win game. It's little things like that, If you win with these guys and don't take a step backwards and still have a chance to win, sometimes it's worth it, man. And the Canucks need to keep this window open, especially with JT Miller being 31 years old or 32, whatever the age is. Anyways, Bagsy, that's me on Lindholm. I'll finish things off like that. Carry on with this whole Zadorov thing because this stuff is pretty interesting.
Yeah, so Nikita Zadorov, again, yesterday, it started yesterday morning, but his wife posted on Instagram on her story saying last days in Vancouver. Ian McIntyre has a tweet talking about how there's been significant progress in contract negotiations with Nikita Zadorov. And Dan Milstein quote tweets it and says fake news. So lots of negativity around the Zadorov situation. We heard further reports that they have not negotiated since the playoffs started. They have not negotiated since the end of the season. But Elliot Friedman, I guess, shed a bit more light on the situation with his report, basically saying that there's a path for the Canucks to keep Zadorov. And Kyle, I think you might have listened to the 32 Thoughts a bit closer than I did. What was Elliot Friedman saying about Nikita Zadorov?
Dude, you think I listened to it, man? Come on, I got that Calgary Wi-Fi. I was just looking at some quotes from Twitter, but let me find that quote again. Give me 1 second. But it was talking about how we may not have to pay Zadorov as much as we think we're paying him, okay? This is the, I don't know if this is the exact quote, but this is a quote from Twitter, okay? Friedman on Nikita Zadorov, courtesy of 32 Thoughts today, okay? Nikita Zadorov has a number which may be less than what he could get on the market. So the Canucks feel like he could get a deal done. What that tells me is Zadorov wants to be a Canuck. And he's willing to take less to stay here. And Begsy, weren't we on the phone yesterday while I was walking around a man-made lake in Calgary, because they got man-made lakes out here? I don't know how. The technology is crazy, okay? But wasn't I telling you, I don't think Zadorov is itching to hit free agency to make the money and only the money. Like, I don't see this guy wanting 7x7 from Utah or 7x7 from Columbus or 7x6.5 from Columbus because he wants to win. Like, that's a big thing for him, okay? Nikita Zadorov played for Colorado, Chicago, and Buffalo when they were ass. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't want to have to go through that again. You see the fire in this guy. You see the swagger in this guy. You cannot be full of swag. You can't fill yourself up with all that juice that drives you if you're playing for a team and you're chasing the money. And also, does he seem like a guy who's going to chase the money? Again, he's a competitor. It's not surprising to me that he'd be willing to take less to stay with the quote-unquote contender, okay? The Canucks have a lot to prove, but it doesn't surprise me that he's taking less. Now, do the Canucks necessarily have to get this done because he's willing to take less? Look, at the end of the day, it's about winning games. The Canucks only made round 2, right? They only got to game 7. I don't know how good Nikita Zadorov was in game 6 and game 7. I'm pretty sure he wasn't that good because the Canucks were getting dominated straight up. I don't know if it's like a must thing to do to sign Nikita Zadorov. Like, there's other players out there that maybe could replace him. But I'm starting to think that Rick Tocchet really wants this guy and wants to lean on this guy and possibly wants to make this guy a part of the core. That sounds crazy because he's Nikita Zadorov. When we acquired this guy, I'm comparing this guy to Tyler Myers, number 5, number 6 defenseman. No, real talk. Real talk. So on that note, I got to ask you, Trevor Beggs, what we saw in the playoffs with Nikita Zadorov, do we have to wait for the playoffs to get that from him game in and game out? Which, again, isn't the worst thing. Like, I don't care if he has a shaky regular season and he just blows up in the playoffs. Like, that's when the games matter, blah, blah, blah. But is there a world also where the Canucks instill a lot of trust in him, they sign him long-term, and he evolves to a full-time top 4 defenseman? Do you see that happening?
I think there's risk both ways. I don't think it's a guarantee he turns into a top 4 defenseman, but I am optimistic that that's the case. I think, again, he hit his stride with his coaching staff. I think Adam Foote's a player who can really relate to Zadorov. You know, Gonchar, Zadorov, maybe they got that Russian bond, that Russian instinct. I think this coaching staff can bring the most out of Nikita Zadorov. That being said, signing him long-term to a deal in that $5 million range, expecting to be your third pair defenseman, is a risk because he has not done that throughout his NHL career. And the guy is 29 years old. So I'm cautiously optimistic that you'll get the best version of Nikita Zadorov in Vancouver. But man, oh man, this is the risk of free agency. I mean, we're talking about Elias Lindholm, who's 28, signing him for 7 years. Talking about Nikita Zadorov, who's 29, signing him for 5-6 years. These are big contracts for guys who are pushing the age of 30. And Kyle, you and I were both 30 and almost 31 years old.
Damn.
We like to think we're in our prime, right? But these guys again, NHL wise are exactly. These guys NHL wise are, we're gonna be paying a lot of guys money in their mid 30s, and that's again, the Canucks Cup window is now, but you're gonna hamper the team. Like, you do want to be a team like Pittsburgh or Boston who's competitive every year, and the Canucks right now, like, again, I think they're in their Cup window. They have a 3-year window, but they might limit that window if they start signing everyone to long-term deals.
I understand where you're coming from. You brought up a huge point. You're going to hamper this organization with these long-term deals, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing also, man. If you don't keep these players, what you're going to be forced to do, especially if you can't replace these players with free agents, is, again, go into your closet full of draft picks, which you don't already have enough of, and start playing that game again. Real talk. Can this team go year after year after year? Now we're going all the way back to the Benning era, where they're just continuing to trade first and second and third round picks to find replacement level players, or not replacement level players, but to, again, fill up some key spots in their organization. Like, I really do think Alvin and Rutherford are looking at what's going on, and they're like, yo, we got to stop trading picks. We got to stop doing that, especially this offseason. Like, I don't want to trade any draft picks this offseason. The next time we trade draft picks, it's next March or next February during the deadline, if things are looking, again, clear, looking straightforward. You get what I'm saying? Because that could get even more dangerous if the Canucks, after making the playoffs once, do it again. Oh, we got to replace Zadorov. We got to replace Lindholm. We didn't get Gensel. We didn't get this guy. We didn't get freaking Frank Bertano. Look, we got to trade draft picks. Like, they're in a predicament. They really are. And, I bring up this whole thing. You see the thumbnail of this episode. If you're on the podcast side, you're not seeing the thumbnail, but it features Jim Benning, okay? And I think there is a lot of pressure on this organization from the likes of Quinn Hughes and company to make sure they do keep a good chunk of these players. Because the last time the Vancouver Canucks did something with this core, half the team was gone. And they had to go out and replace those guys. They had money to do so. But they failed on every single person they spent their money on. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So what works. Like Lindholm's relationship with Tocchet or Zadorov's relationship with Tocchet, Joshua's. Again, we only made the second round. Alvin straight up said this is not good enough. I'm saying it's not good enough. I'm not married to these players, but I do feel as if you got to keep at least 2 of these guys. And I'm throwing Hronek in that mix too. Like, you just can't go into next season playing the lottery by, again, forcing your hand and having to replace all these guys. It's too much work. It's too much work. And that would confuse the players. And there needs to be a little bit of cohesiveness, okay, going into next season.
Yeah, and in terms of that cohesiveness, I'm glad you threw Hronek into the mix because, Kyle, you brought up that number 2.
Yeah.
I think if they do keep Hronek and then one of Zadorov, Joshua, and Lindholm, that might be as good as they can do, to be honest with you. Again, I'm looking at the cap projections right now, playing around with it. Like, even if Hronek signs at a discount, let's say 6.5, 6-ish on a short-term deal. Let's say they do sign Zadorov and Lindholm. you got about $8.3 million left for one other top 6 player, assuming that you've moved on from Ilya Mikheyev or you've LTIR'd him. So again, it's a sticky cap situation. And I think realistically, the Canucks can only keep 2 of Hronek, Zadorov, Joshua, and Lindholm. So again, I would say if they are able to keep 2 of them, it's probably not really a repeat of 2020. You're not letting all your 4 big guys walk. And I guess I'm including Troy Stecher's a big guy back in 2020. But I see what you mean about the cohesiveness. But even Rick Tocchet said as much today. This team might look drastically different next season. We've heard rumors about a ruthless offseason because there's a salary cap, right? And, Papa Sailor, I saw, he said this in the comments too, kind of taking a shot at Pettersson. It's just like that 11.6 is not looking so great now. Look, you got to pay your star players, and to get Pettersson, he needs to be better and live up to that contract. But, again, I'm just saying, I love Lindholm, I love Zadorov, I love Joshua, but there's risks in signing these players to multi-year, long-term deals in free agency.
Yeah. No, there is. And you know what? We do got to get out of here. So I'll end on this note. I know for like 24, 25 minutes, I've been like, sign Lindholm, sign Zadorov, all this jazz, make sure that the boys in the room, the core in the room is, again, happy, knowing that there is some cohesiveness coming back. That all being said, dude, if the Canucks only bring back one of these guys, it may stress out the fan base. It may stress out some players. But I am telling you, I am fully confident in Alvin and Rutherford to figure out a way to get the job done, and also fully confident that this core of Miller, Hughes, Pettersson, Besser, Demko won't be jaded if a lot of these guys don't come back, okay? These guys are 4 years older. They just got a taste of the real playoffs. They got a taste of Vancouver for what it is. They got a taste of Rogers Arena for what it is. Rogers Arena blew up this postseason. Quinn Hughes, again, the captain of this team. There's no Horvat this time, you know what I'm saying? Quinn Hughes is an effing alpha. He's an effing alpha. He's so good. He's one of the best players in hockey. Things are different this time around. Again, if we don't bring back the majority of these guys, I'm confident it's a little different. And I know that may sound a little confusing because of my reaction to this Lindholm Zadorov news over the last 26 minutes, but I'm just confident, man. This is different. It's different. I'm not worried. Quinn Hughes, Alvin and company, they're going to figure this out.
They're going to figure this out. And I figured out that we're at the end of this episode here, all Locked On Canucks. Okay. So again, let us know in the comments. What do you think? Zadorov, Joshua, Lindholm, who do you want? What are they signing for? And again, here at Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day will have you covered on all the news, rumors, and topics surrounding your Vancouver Canucks this offseason. Kyle, so you're frozen with the finger in the air. What do you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
There's a couple comments, quick styles. Kempner saying, I'd rather overpay on Zadorov than overpay on a free agent a few days later. I'd rather not overpay for anyone, to be honest. But I get what he's saying. Look at Kempner again. Zadorov is a playoff player. It's the truth. Like, let's say we sign Zadorov to a long-term deal and he's struggling during the season because he's Nikita Zadorov. I'm fully confident that when the playoffs roll around, this guy will evolve into like an 87 overall defenseman again, okay? And you made a big point on this, Trevor. The whole Adam Foote thing, and Kurt Richardson's bringing this up too, right? Another year with Adam Foote and Gonchar doing work on Zadorov and company could evolve Zadorov into a player that we don't think is possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. There's like a small chance that Zadorov does become something that we can't imagine based on more time with this organization and that coaching staff. Okay. Last note. Hit the like button, okay? Subscribe to the show. Why should you do so? I'm going to bring it up again. I'm staying at an Oilers fan's house. This guy just spent a lot of money to go to Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals, okay? For real. He's doing that. That's how big of a diehard he is. That's the house that I'm staying at. In the closet, in the guest room that I'm staying at, it's full of Oilers jerseys, okay? That's the environment I'm in. This guy let me his kitchen, let me his house, let me his car, saved me a lot of money. And what did I do? Went to the restaurant with him, and I didn't pay for his bill. Why? Because I'm a Canucks fan and not a family man. Hit the like button. Begsy, sign us out.
Let's go, baby. Shout out to the everydayers, occasional listeners, first-time listeners, new subscribers, and those of you who joined us on the live show on YouTube. We appreciate each and every one of you, wherever and whenever you're listening to the show. Again, more Canucks rumors, news, analysis, and topic breakdowns next week. What's the cap look like? What's going to happen with Ilya Mikheyev? Why is Kyle always drinking chocolate Bacardi? All that and more on another episode of Locked On Canucks. But we got to get out of here. So for now, I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Cal Bowden. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On